One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the self-healing that the body has within its innate mechanism to heal. How conflicts manifest physically. And that's a language that no one that I live with here has. And so I don't speak it with them. And in that place, I guess I become more observant than I become like I know it. Like I know what's going on. I become more like, okay, let's see what's going on. You know, they say this happens. They say that happens. So the brain fog, the high fever, all of the symptoms that are COVID descend. So in that case, what is that? These are my questions. Is it so completely divorced from environment? Is it a combination of environment and inner life? Why do some people get sick with certain things and then other people get sick with certain things? And I don't know what those answers are. I wanted to talk to Einstein and the party about it because they have forever said they are here not only to, for example, help us heal from those illnesses, but to prevent them from even manifesting. In the process for myself of getting COVID, how do we dissect that? I'm going along in my life and I'm feeling great. I'm probably physically more healthy than I've been in a long time. I've been doing intermittent fasting and I've dropped a lot of weight, and my energy is skyrocketed and my joints are feeling great. And I'm just, every day I'm waking up just like, oh my God, I'm so lucky to be me. I just love my life. I love my richness of everything. And then boom, I'm down for the count. So what is that?
Very good questions. Sorry, no answers here. Very good questions though to ask about. I'd love to hear about that.
I do know that we do manifest a lot of things, and we manifest them subconsciously from past experiences in this lifetime as well as other lifetimes, and releasing them. You don't even have to know what it is. Just put it out there that you are asking the universe and the powers to be to help you let go, release. That's one of the easiest ways I know of to do it for myself. But I think right now, while I'm watching you and listening to you, I think this is an example. So you are saying you got really taken down by this, but look at, you're back. So you are proof that your body could deal with this, and you're back. And I'm assuming you're feeling pretty close back to normal. To me, you're an example of how you come back over and over and over again. You Barbara, for all the years I've known you, whenever you had something, you've always overcome it, grown from it, and moved on. And you're still that beautiful, shining example for the rest of us that this can happen.
Well, thank you. And I think it was something that Joanne said last winter when I had that sprained hip. And Joanne, you had said something like, sometimes when we're in this great space, that's setting us up to be able to go through this And that was so powerful for me to conscientiously watch myself go through it without I went through a lot of deep emotion and did a little bit of beating up, but out of that also came the resolution and the healing of it. So that I have known for these past couple of years that I didn't want to get a vaccination because of the work we've done with Einstein and because of this whole thing that we are the guinea pigs. And if healing ourselves has to do with healing our conflicts, like you were saying in the beginning, Joanne, that this isn't COVID, this is conflict that manifests for us to be able to overcome. That's a whole different way of living life. And I think while I was in COVID, it was a very, very spacey place because my fever was pretty high for several days and there was no eating to be had. And so I was in this space that I threw myself into. It's like, okay, I knew I wanted to get it because if we're going to evolve past it, then let me be one of them who gets it and gets better, because it doesn't have that compound effect on me, I believe, because of this work that we do. But I don't know, that could just be wishful thinking.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You think I'm right in my theory?
In your theory, yes. And yes, you are a way-shower. So it would, and it would make sense that you would get this when you were strong, because you were feeling very strong. When I heard you got it, I was like, whoa, this is a good thing it happened now when you are, you can do it. You could handle it easier than if you were overweight and having health problems and whatnot. It would have been a totally different experience or more challenging. So
yeah. So the change in my health, which took place rather quickly, I think because it was the end of April when I went to see the doctor and she suggested intermittent fasting. So May and June, 2 months, the transformation was astounding to me. And not just because I wanted to lose weight, but because apparently when you intermittently fast, your body has a chance to regain itself as it's not.
exactly.
So I felt incredibly regained. And then boom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's always been my understanding that when cancer takes over in the body, that is very deep-seated anger and conflict that we have. And that's one of the ways it manifests physically in the body. Is that anything either one of you have heard?
Every cancer has its own specific conflict content. So some of them are anger, some of them are loss, some of them are scare, fright, feeling stuck. Some of them, there are two kinds of breast cancer. One is a worry or an argument about a mother or a child or a partner. The other one is a separation conflict. So there are lots of, everyone's specific, everyone is governed by a certain part of the brain. Everyone is associated with certain microbes in the healing phase. It's all mapped out very clearly, and it's the same for everybody every time. The process, the biological process is the same, but what causes the conflict and how you respond. So the same thing can happen to 10 people and they'll respond in 10 different ways and get 10 different sets of symptoms and organs affected. So there you go. So COVID, I used to just stand in front of the list, in front of the grocery store, window and read, if you have this, 20 things. And I thought, they're covering 20 conflicts there. It's not all caused by one thing. There are different conflicts causing different, the body's very logical, biological. It does the same thing every time for every person if you have a certain conflict. Yeah. So in the case of the indigestible anger conflict, while you're having it, while you're having any conflict, your hands and feet are cold, your appetite may be down, you may wake up at night and be thinking about the conflict. You're thinking about it, you're obsessing. So all the energy is going to try and solve the conflict. And depending on the organ and the part of the brain that's governing it, you're either building up tissue or you are, tissue is being lost. So that's specific, another story. But in your case, there was a buildup of tissue in the small intestine, and then when you resolved it, all of that was just washed away.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it takes the fever and the fluid and the swelling and that, and every time you have pain, which is almost always associated with swelling and pressure and so on, you're meant to just lie down and let it happen and not take it easy, and you don't start feeling hungry until a bit later on in the healing phase, and then you've turned the corner when you start feeling hungry again. You're in the last lap of the healing. We're putting on a big summit, the German Healing Knowledge Group in the States. Well, it's global, but the basic group are in the States and in Canada and in Cyprus and in Paraguay. But the summit we're putting on in the fall in October, I'll keep you posted, is 3 evenings, and then everything will be shown again with question and answer on the Saturday. So that's mid-October. And we've been
doing that in Canada and the US?
It's all going to be online. It's global. So it's, yeah, and it's free. And then if you want to buy it later, you can, but it'll be free for at least a week. So you can tune in live or you can watch it all later recorded. And it's an extremely good group of people. We're in touch with Helmut Pilar, his name is, and he lives in Paraguay because I think he was suing the Austrian government for what they were doing in terms of the whole thing. Dr. Hammer's gone, but he's the one that is carrying on, that was given the okay by Dr. Hammer, the mandate, if you will, to proceed. So we're studying with him every week.
I've always been fascinated by German New Knowledge. No, what is it now?
Thank you. Yeah, they called it German New Medicine in the beginning, but actually Dr. Hammer apparently wanted to call it German Healing Knowledge.
German Healing.
Yeah, take the medicine right out of it, partly because of the way he was treated by the medical community.
Sure.
And partly because it's just an understanding of how our bodies are so in tune with nature. His whole premise, his whole desire was to help people understand how and why things happen according to the natural laws. So 5 biological laws of nature. Happens with birds, with animals, with fish, with people, all the same. Yeah. But of course, he was looking at human brain scans, because that's what he could get. And it's always the same. Every woman who has a certain, the breast lump on the left side, if she's right-handed, that's a mother-child conflict. It's going to show in the same place in the brain when it's in conflict active phase and when it's in the healing phase. Now, what causes that conflict, for each woman, that's subjective, subconscious, that's your own. And that's why it's valuable to know this, so you do know what you're working with, as it were, what your issues are, because they tend to repeat or get re-triggered. A couple of important things to know about cancer is there are no metastases. Cancer does not move from one organ or tissue to another. They've never proven it, they never will. Everyone is specific to its own conflict. So that idea is erroneous, and it causes a lot of problems. People, of course, have different sites, cancer in different sites at the same time, but they have their own conflicts. So if a woman has breast cancer and she's not feeling good about herself and about her breast, and maybe has surgery even or has it removed, they automatically look at the lymph and the bones. Okay, and those are both, the conflict for both of those is a self-devaluation conflict, not feeling good about yourself there now. the lymph is minor, it's a small conflict, and in the end, the lymph is just stronger. The bones are harder to deal with. Bone cancer, they never diagnose it until it's in the healing phase, and the healing phase of bone cancer is leukemia.
When someone would come to you as a practitioner with a physical conflict, what is the process that you do to help them get to that?
Get to what?
To the conflict as opposed to the physical illness?
Very often you can't diagnose what the conflict is until you are in the healing phase and you have the symptoms, because all conflict phases, there are a few that have symptoms in the conflict phase, but usually they're not until the healing phase that you actually get the symptoms that are part of the healing. But that's when people come, that's when people are diagnosed, and
Right.
so you can help support the healing, get them through the healing. And depending on what the conflict is, if they want to, or if it's important that they heal, that they resolve the conflict so it doesn't happen again, or so it doesn't cause more problems. Some do, some don't. It's important to heal some conflicts so they don't get worse and become unhealable, if you will. And people pass. There are certain ones, but a lot of them, especially if it's a first-time conflict or an uncommon conflict for you, like you don't get ill very often, but if you always get diarrhea, then that's the kind of conflicts that you get angry about things, and that's what happens. Some people always get congested, colds, flu, that's a stink conflict. They don't, they're fed up with what's going on. Bronchitis is a scare fright, feeling stuck and feeling trapped. Perfect for COVID, that one, saying that's a respiratory problem, because that's what happens. If you feel scared and you're afraid and then you're trapped in your house, you feel stuck. And even worse, if you get hospitalized and nobody can be with you, you get extra fluid build up, and then you get pneumonia, and then it goes from bad to worse. So it's all very, very well documented for decades, and thousands, hundreds of thousands of brain scans that he looked at. And for the last part of his life, when he was being ostracized by the medical community, Dr. Hammer, I think, worked for 3 or 4 hours a day, took phone calls, had brain scans in front of him, and just told people what was going on and how to work with it for nothing. He didn't charge anything for his information for many years. I just learned recently, when he was in France, that a lot of doctors were working with him, but they were one day told that if they worked with him, they could no longer practice medicine. So 700 of them turned their back on him. But there were a lot of doctors working with and using the system and understanding the meaning of it. But that happens all the time, doesn't it?
Well, especially these days, when even people who are not marginalized, who aren't on the margins, are being marginalized.
Yes.
I don't know why. I do know why. I knew the regulatory capture of big pharmaceuticals has been revealed, at least in the United States. It's now we know. So when you said earlier, in the next couple of years, we're going to go through some changes that are going to be positive, I really believe that's happening. I do believe that there are more people than ever, even in the past 2 years. I can at least now have a conversation with people who I could never have had a conversation with.
Yeah, there are many layers to this, or levels, whatever, to the pandemic, which was in fact predicted before it ever came by different sources. And so there's the obvious one, people getting sick, dying. There's the what's behind that. There's the consciousness evolution. There's the shift in consciousness. There's the opening to a bigger picture. There's a examining of what's going on and why. And so more people have come out of the woodwork, if you will, about the terrain, about the, what is behind the bigger picture, that there is a bigger picture. there are very few people in my life that I can talk to about this. So I meet with a group that is working with it. I mean, even my own sons, I can see them shifting as well. To,
Yeah.
you know what, that just doesn't even make sense anymore, what they're saying out there. Like, how many bloody boosters do you need? Well, they're saying, oh, you probably need 2 a year now for the rest of it. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
And that's what I think will be revealed more and more. Not everybody will believe it, of course, even with, proof positive, but enough will. Like the 30% that are really brainwashed from Dr. Desmond's work, they may never want to believe that. Like, they just believe in the medical system and the pharmaceutical industry, and they take everything and whatever. But the 40% in the middle that were, going along to get along, they're not brainwashed. And the 30% of us that I consider myself a part of that never did buy into it because of my decades of studying. So now we're 70% of the people that are not going to take it. And the patriarchy is not liking that, right? And so they are going to fight tooth and nail. We're having some wonderful revelations in Canada about Hockey Canada. Hockey's a big deal here, of course.
Yeah.
And lots of young boys and girls play hockey. We've got good hockey teams and players and so on, blah, blah. And for years, apparently, the registration fee parents pay to get their kids into these programs, and they're enough. Part of it has been used to pay off sexual assault claims out of court.
Oh, wow. So that's all coming up to light.
That's all coming to light, and so the government has stopped funding to them. Then the gymnastics, Canadian Gymnastic Organization has asked for their funding to be stopped. The participant, the athletes, because of the abuse and so on, the same as you had in the States in the gymnastic field. Okay, and so all of these things, and the Pope is visiting this week. He's going to apologize to the Indigenous people for what the church has done, and come on, about time. So all of these things are coming to light, and people are ready to move on. I believe a lot of people are ready to move on and build a better world, and they know how to as well. And the young kids coming in now, according to one of my sources that I like, the Coming Age of Miracles, the kids are coming in, will not ever have psychoses, will not ever have the mental problems. They're coming in without that. They're not going to be coming into the old formats, the old genetics. That to me is one of the most encouraging things I've ever read. But you can see in the young kids, they're just way ahead, way ahead.
Let's talk to the party.
Yes.
Let's see what they have to say. Okay. So let's all take a few deep breaths and connect up to each other in the non-physical. Feel ourselves in the circle of souls, in the source, in the clarity. And let's release thoughts of the physical world and explore deeper into that non-physical place. So we will command that only the most divine light shine down upon you at this time, and the greatest good be present here. Welcome to the circle. Welcome to the party. It's been a little bit of time since we've had an opportunity to speak to you in this way, but rest assured that the work that's been going on within you each individually has not diminished. Even if you're not conscientious about these depths that are going on within you, rest assured they are. And we as the party have been very busy during these times, helping individuals on that non-physical level, helping each of you, and you in turn are helping us. For example, when Barbara got sick, there was a lot of observation about many of these things that you are talking about. The idea that illness is rooted in conflict is very much the groundwork for all of our work. In a world where you are aligned to compassion, in a world of the new humanity that we are helping you birth, the physical body expresses that conflict more often than not. Now, we have to say that in Barbara's case, there have been mental health issues that weren't necessarily hurting the physical body as she was when she was sick a few weeks ago. But those conflicts arise in individuals very uniquely. Some humans who are programmed to be very much like culture wants you to be. People who accept what the voices of culture say, who don't trust their intuitive selves. These people oftentimes manifest conflict as illness in the ways that they've been told happens. Other people aren't quite so pre-programmed into the voices of culture, and so their conflicts arise in ways unique to them. So not just illnesses, but car accidents, the manifestation of conflicts with other people. There are all kinds of ways that conflicts manifest for each individual. And the only one that you need to really know about is yourself. Joanne, you can go through a conflict in a very unique, specific way for you, while Debbie would have a similar conflict, but it would manifest differently for her. And as far as we can see from where we are in the non-physical, with what we have brought here, all of us, not just Einstein, not just the party, but everyone who comes to participate in this grand study that we have been undergoing for all of these years. Everyone has that unique imprint like no other. There is no one else imprinted like you. Of all the millions and billions of people who have incarnated into the world, each is unique. And because of that, each also manifests those conflicts uniquely to the self. In many people's cases, as we've talked about, the people who go along, the people who don't push themselves, the people who want someone else to tell them what the truth is, who don't want to explore from their own inner depths, they replicate patterns of culture. If you think about the history of humans through the world, you can tell as you look, say, in the past 100 years, let's say from 1900 to 2000. For a very long time, these patterns were predictable and they had a lot of people believing and buying into the structures that culture told them. This is how it works. This is how it has to work. But what's happened is within these past 20, 30 years, where humans have begun to break free from culture, individually, one at a time, breaking free from culture, they are creating new worlds. So those of you here who are listening to this channel 30 years ago, regardless of what your life was like or what you were doing or how aware you were of your spiritual self or any of that, you were in the process of breaking free from the voices of culture. And through these 30 years, you have taken hold of your life in a way that humans have not done before. And now, with these past few years, where everything that has been assumed is now exploded, humans like yourself, who were around 30 years ago, have undergone such a monumental change that you're laying this groundwork for future generations. As Joanne had said, the children who are being born today and born into this new, miraculous, wide open possibilities, they are shaping themselves physically in a way that humans have not been shaped before. They are indeed the new humanity. And the work that you're doing as you're transitioning from the old humanity to the new humanity is what lays that groundwork for this new humanity that is rising up and coming forth. And it's a very exciting time for us, even amongst all of the difficulties, all of the conflicts, all of the realizations. Even amidst all of that, we are in a celebratory mode. We are celebrating because we see this long view, and we see now, today, 2022, that the world and humans are birthing this new humanity. If you were to take each day and be very aware of who you are, what you feel, what your thoughts are doing, what your intuition is impelling you to do, if you take each day and make that awareness your top priority, you are being such a positive influence on this change that's going on. You're not clinging to the old voices of culture. You're having the courage to step out and experiment with who you are, with what you can do, with what you feel, with what you think. And every situation, whether it's easy or hard, is helping you. So we want to say to you that even if you are struggling, even if some of those days you feel like it's just a lost cause, or some of those days you feel like it's a miracle, you can go from one to the other and not have to worry that you're doing something wrong. How come some days I feel like it's a miracle and other days I don't really even want to be here? because you're human. And you're human and you're alive at a time of such great awakening, such great growth in humanity that is overwhelming. And sometimes that's why you feel overwhelmed. You're in this time of like it's never been before on the planet, like humans have never been before. This is not an easy, quick, snap thing. There are not a lot of just easy answers, even if you've studied with us for all of these years, even if you practice conflict resolution, even if you understand the amount of knowledge that Joanne has for her studies, even with all of that, it is the most incredible and excruciating thing to be human. We wish we could tell you otherwise. We wish we could say there's this surefire way where you don't ever have to feel anything but beautiful and wonderful and on top of the world. But it's not that way. And it's never going to be that way. Yes, you can master yourself to a point where you can resolve 80% of the conflicts that you might have had when you were growing up or in your young adulthood. You can get to an incredible place, but you're always going to be humans. Always. Until you lose the physical body, you're always going to be humans. And humans are the most complicated creatures that exist. So don't push yourselves to be perfect. Don't underestimate the power of this human existence, both for the greatest good and for the worst possible scenario. This is why we have come here, to be with you, to work with you, to learn from you, to talk to you, to inspire you, to explore this grand experience of humanity. We can guarantee you that when you get to your deathbed and you're in those last throes of being a human being, that everything is going to homogenize into one life. You may remember some of the bad things that happened, but many of the good things that happened. But more than that, what you're going to have is this growing awareness that the experience of being a human was something that was so much greater than you could ever embrace while you were living through it. And all of us in the party feel the same way. We look back on our lives, who we had been, of what we did, particularly Einstein, particularly the work that Einstein has done to advance civilization and also to be a detriment to civilization. And part of that detriment came from what was originally designed to be a revolutionary formula of E equals MC squared. And what happened was, watching humans take that and turn it into a massive potential for complete annihilation of the planet was enough for Albert to, on his deathbed, cling to the idea that he had to change humans, that wanting to change governments, wanting to change scientific organizations, wanting to change military, all of that was predicated on the fact that they're only as good as the humans that make up those groups. And as he passed, knowing that the world had created nuclear weapons that could destroy the entire planet, he took that truth with him into the afterlife. And from that inspiration came this desire to help humans study themselves, make themselves better, starting with themselves. That seems impossible sometimes, that humans themselves could strive to be the best that they can be, because you see so many who don't. You see so many even who aren't even evil, who just don't want to believe that they can have the power that they can have to heal themselves, to change themselves, and thereby changing their world around them. So many don't even strive to do that. So this work that we've done all these years with you, and every other bit of work that you do that pushes you towards that evolution, is a huge, huge effort for the whole planet, not just yourselves, but for the entire human species. And of course, we've said this for years. We've said this over and over. And sometimes we feel as if we just keep repeating ourselves. But as we started out by saying, we are joyful. We are excited about the work that humanity is doing and about the natural progression of humanity because of the work that you're doing, how you're influencing the children and the children that are to come, even if you have no children of your own. It's a conscientious, collective consciousness that is moving humanity to the place where we've always wanted to move it to. Now, this may not happen today or tomorrow where the whole world changes, but you are seeing it, and you will be seeing more of it as these years progress forward. So we want to say, just keep your focus on your intention. Keep your focus on this idea that being human is such a rich, glorious, aggravating, inspiring, miraculous experience that is like nothing else in the universe. It's such a precious gift, good and bad and ugly, to be that human. And no matter what, we tell all of you that when you leave this world as this human, you take with you this incredibly rich perspective and intention, as long as you keep working every day to be these people who self-love. Self-love. You are being a part of this huge change, and we are so proud to be a part of your work. We are here, and we are blessing all of you for all of this conscientious work that you are doing. It's miraculous. So is there any questions or conversations you would like to have with us today?
Hi, Jojo here. It's interesting. I totally agree, of course, that we're all originals. We're all unique. It couldn't be otherwise. And yet, a lot of people, and because of the voices of culture, certainly as after the industrial age, more and more people living together closer and in cities and so on, in unnatural ways, if you will, banding together and wanting to be like each other, want for safety's sake, I suppose. Is that valid?
Yes, there was, as humans were emerging from the evolutionary chain and began to develop intellect, there was a group of people who were very much, say, afraid of lightning. And then there were those who were going to be afraid of water, oceans. And there were those who were going to be afraid of all these other things. And so they banded together instinctually to create these leagues of people, perhaps. And from that, everything has arisen then of who you're going to be afraid of, the color of their skin or the religion, or it's just ingrained into culture.
I read a long time ago that we don't have prejudice because of different skin colors, religions, and so on. We have different skin colors and religions to overcome prejudice.
Yes, that the incredible variety of not just everything, plants and elements and minerals, and this incredible variety was not a problem until humans began to develop into these intellectually fear-based creatures. And that variety was to be celebrated. And then those, as you say, who cannot celebrate must learn to overcome whatever within them does not allow them to celebrate that variety.
And not only variety, but I am astounded every time I walk, every time at the abundance of nature, that every tree produces millions of seeds, millions of them. Every plant, like it's not just, a few so that they can perpetuate the species. It's hundreds of thousands and more around nature, and realize how abundant the natural world is and that we're part of it.
Yes, very much. You could not exist without the natural world. It is the garden.
Full of helpful microbes.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is Debbie. I want to say I relate to the feeling that life is a lost cause, and then I'll remind myself that it is a miracle. Keep going, and feeling that overwhelmedness. I would like you, though, to please clarify, what is the process of identifying the conflict within us?
Well, there are different ways to identify. If you have a very strong grasp on your intellect, you can get into the nuts and bolts of the conflicts through conflict resolution, through the process of identifying what outside you, what triggers you outside you, and taking that revolution inward. So, for example, if Barbara were to have been able to identify the conflict that was at the root of her illness for the past few weeks, it would have been an intellectual pursuit. It would have been thinking and noticing and witnessing what are those deep emotions, what are they surrounding. But unfortunately, that is not always available. And so then the body does take in the conflict in an illness that then runs its course. Does it resolve all of that conflict that was at the base of that illness? Probably not. But never before have humans wanted to know these things. Never before have humans wanted to dig down so deeply into themselves that they can resolve those conflicts or bring a deeper understanding of who you are. So this is a giant experiment. We wish we had definitive answers to everything, but we don't. And sometimes we talk like we do because of what we've learned from working with you. We would say it's a continual awareness of the structure, so that one day you'll wake up and you'll remind yourself that this is an incredibly complex experience that I'm having, being human. The conflicts are so deep and so multi-leveled that it would be impossible to know them all and to resolve them all. But the continual pursuit of that is what self-love is. Even if you can't get to the root of it, you can get to where you can love yourself through it and have a deeper understanding of this life that's so complex.
Thank you. I'll keep pursuing.
So I would like to know, Barbara With, would like to ask, this sickness, this COVID, quote unquote, that I had, was this something that I could have or should have avoided if I had been more conscientious? Would I have not gotten sick? Because like you've told us, you're here to help us prevent the manifestation of conflicts that then lead to the illnesses like cancer and such. So anyway, that's my question. We would say, technically, that is the idea, is that if you live lives that every day you're embracing the truth of how we've taught you, that you have emotion, intuition, and intellect, and that you're striving to live in alignment, which means that you feel all your feelings, that you are guided by your intuition, and mostly that you get the wild horses of the intellect under control and in alignment to do the job that intellect is supposed to do, which is to identify the world and do the bidding of intuition. If you live that way, you will reduce the illnesses that you get. But again, this is not perfection. This is the experience of the miraculous life of being a human that you've been given. And in that is as complicated of a system as we could ever begin to describe. So we assume the answer is yes and no. Yes, if you continue to live that way. You will be able to reduce the numbers of conflicts and the illnesses that you have. And know in the sense that when you do get physically ill, then you can start to explore that conflict. So there shouldn't be any sort of, oh, you should have done it better. You should have done it better. That way you wouldn't have gotten sick. No, you got sick as a way to release some of these conflicts. And the more that through your illness that you look at it that way, rather than a death sentence or the inevitable, that this is the gift that you're being given, then the more quality of life that you'll have. And that's really what we're hoping to inspire you to do, is to live the highest quality of life that you can, because it's very short and then you're gone. So we're going to close the channel by saying that there's a great shift happening right now on your planet with all the humans. And we are, as always, here working with you, being available to give you our wisdom, learning from you and what you're going through. And from now until probably the end of summer into the fall, we want all of you to take some time to slow down, to just slow down and really, to the best of your ability, appreciate your human life. Appreciate all of the things that this human life entails. And if you can, take some time to get away from what's been normal for you, regular for you. Do some things that stretch you outside of how you live in your patterns. Get out of your patterns of living, whether it be to really study something that you've never studied before, or to go somewhere you haven't been before, or to somehow make this life that you've been given a little more interesting, a little more colorful, and most of all, a little more appreciated. And to do that, you really only need to watch and then be amazed. Namaste.